Good evening. Welcome back to Spirits and Ghost Stories. I'm your host, Thomas Aarons.
And Carly Bird.
Week 32. We've made it 8 months. This is absolutely incredible. I cannot believe we've done this. And guys, we have a special treat for you today. And we're going to get right into it. We are doing Mothman today. And so what we're going to do first is I'm going to give you a little background about the mythology of it. And then we're going to get into a really cool story. Now, I didn't know this upon reviewing this, but Mothman is as big to West Virginia as Godzilla is to Japan. And so to really explain that, to explain why that is, I want to kind of get into kind of the mythology first, or like, I guess, the background of Appalachia, then the mythology. So to begin with, Appalachia is a massive place. It really spans from New York all the way down to Georgia. But the primary area that we think of as Appalachia is the West Virginia, Tennessee, Kentucky area of the country. Now, this place was settled mostly by two types of people. It was the Scots Irish. About 90% of them settled in Appalachia in the 18th and 19th century. The Scots Irish were descendants of Protestants who migrated here from Ireland and Scotland when they were being persecuted by the King of England. The king, William of Orange, Protestant King of Scotland, England, and of many other areas, was referred to as King Billy among the Scots. When the former King James,
King Billy.
I know King Billy.
No, I'm following now. Okay, keep going. King
But-
Billy getting to
But
West Virginia.
when former King James II invaded Ireland in 1689, William's followers, known as Billy Boys, hid out in the forest and would do a sneak attack on the king. When these ancestors came to America, the New Englanders, who were primarily of British descent, they gave them more like a jab of hillbillies. And that's where that kind of stuck and came from. Now, the Scotch Irish, as you'll see, have a really cool connection with the Celts. And we're going to get back to that in a minute. But these people are largely poor, humble, and fiercely self-reliant, with an innate distrust of government after decades of fighting the English and the Catholics. And then this culture of being self-reliant, not liking the government, being a little bit more isolated, kind of goes hand in hand with Appalachia, which is very rural, very poor. California was actually settled and was more modernized way before parts of Appalachia even got modern appliances and electricity. And even after World War II, there were still parts of West Virginia that didn't have running power or, had some of the greater conveniences of life. So that kind of really shows you that Appalachia is a mountainous valley, like mountains and valleys, and it's very, very, very isolated. You combine that with people that also like to be isolated and self-reliant. It builds an interesting culture. But before I get ahead of myself, let's talk about the other people that live there, which are the Germans. Now, the German immigrants, who are often referred to as Dutch because they came from Deutschland, were another group that had a huge influence on the Appalachian culture. They primarily settled in Pennsylvania and Virginia, bringing with them food such as apples, apple butter, sauerkraut, things like that. And they settled in the Pennsylvania area, of course. And we know this because where we're living right now is pretty close to the Pennsylvania border. So you can
Pennsylvania
see
Dutch. They're like right around the
Pennsylvania
corner.
Dutch. And you can see a lot of that culture developed right from there, which again, I just think is really, really cool.
There's the Dutch farmers market also right around the corner. They always have apple butter, so as soon as you said apple butter, I was like, oh, I can pin those people right away. Where they make delicious bread and like baked goods and cookies.
I mean, it's really, really good. And then again, like when these people came here, they were persecuted. So what happens when you're persecuted? Not only do you try to like move away from the people that persecuted you, but you tend to stick with yourself.
Right.
You stay with yourself. You stay with your own kind. And so Germans, especially after World War I, when, we were fighting the Germans, like there was a lot of discrimination against them. And they settled much more distinctively in specific areas that let them be separate from other people. So this culture could grow even more. The other interesting thing is their ability to tell stories and their culture of telling stories. And this gets back to the Celtic influence. I'll get to that in a minute. Because the Celts are a very important part of not only the Mothman, but a lot of the Appalachian cryptids that we know today. The Scotch Irish and the Germans brought with them their Celtic mythology that they brought from their forecountry. The Celts used to be a massive empire that spanned from Germany all the way to the Isles of Great Britain. What people don't know is that they really started in Germany. And what happened is, as the Roman Empire grew and pushed them back, which the Romans called them barbarians, they pushed them to the British Isles and then to Ireland. So even though the Celtic heritage is extremely strong in Ireland, that's because that was the last bastion of the Celtic Empire, not because it's like it was from there. And so you see remnants of the Celtic culture still in Germany today. And it's this ability, if you know the Celts, or if you guys would like to listen to some of our older episodes that we really get into that, especially with the water kelpie and things like that, which water kelpie.
It's the water kelpie. Yeah.
Fantastic episode, guys. Please look at that one up. Really gets into it. It's cool because they love telling stories, and they have mythology for everything, like tree monsters, and then fish monsters, and then like banshees, of course, elves. Like, it's so interesting. Gnomes. Like they have this really cool mythology for everything. And then these people, their ancestors come over and then inhabit poor rural areas, and they're isolated, and it gives them the ability to almost like create their own mythology here. And that kind of gets us into the tale of Mothman. And you think of Mothman, this is just so crazy. Like, how big is Mothman over here? Well, guys, let me kind of I'm going to share this with you and the whole world finally. This festival here.
Celebrate the legend.
Every year they have this. They have it up at Point Pleasant, West Virginia, every year. And it's to celebrate Mothman. And you can tell they have a massive website with attractions. You can actually get your picture taken with Mothman. They do cosplay. They do tour bus rides. Like, they have a live band that they have there.
It's a tour bus?
Yeah. And they have, because they go to the areas that he's been seen. And of course, that's going to get into kind of his background. But I wanted to show this website. I thought this was important just to kind of see, like, there's a Mothman museum that they have there. They have attractions. They have the tour bus that goes to the TNT area.
Years of terror.
Look at this. They have guest speakers, fun for the kids. I know, right?
Ghostbusters.
The area, but like, this thing's like, I really want to do this tour bus.
Yes.
Mothman costumes, of course.
The museum.
Like, look at this. They have a 5K run that you do. Like, I'm telling you, isn't this crazy? Like, all the stuff that they have there.
That looks pretty fun.
And guys, if you really want to kind of see what we're seeing right now, just go over to the YouTube channel right now, and we have it all there. But yeah, it's just like there's a lot there, isn't there?
And Mount Pleasant, how far is that from us?
Mount Pleasant, it's not far at all. I mean, we could definitely GPS coordinate, but it's like maybe less than a day's drive. But in this right here, you think, well, this is kind of an old thing. No, because if you look at the bottom of it, it says Mothman Festival 2022. So, and this takes place every September, generally speaking, is when this takes place. I use this festival as an idea, just to show you like how big a deal like this is. Like, it's not just a water kelpie in a sense, where it's like they don't celebrate it like this is big. Like, every single person in West Virginia.
You're saying it's not an old mythology. What it is, it's a yearly celebrated.
It's a pop culture now.
Basically, yeah.
It is the king of the Appalachian cryptids, is the Mothman. And so with that said, let's kind of get into the background of that. The first Mothman sighting occurred near a small town of Point Pleasant, West Virginia in 1966 on November 12th of that year. 5 men in a nearby town were digging a grave when they reportedly saw a man-like shadowy figure fly over their heads from a nearby tree.
Why are they digging a grave?
Listen, back then.
What? Was it their job?
Well, I was going to say, like, back then, it's like, well, people die, and that's what they do. So what are they digging a grave? Probably for a dead body.
Die.
But probably for a dead body is what I'm thinking. But anyway, they were digging a grave when they reported seeing a man-like shadowy figure flying over their heads from a nearby tree. 3 days later, on November 14th, two young couples, Roger and Linda Scarberry, and Steve and Mary Maletti, told police they were chased in their car by a black figure with a 10-foot wingspan and glowing red eyes.
Wow.
This also happened near Point Pleasant and by a former World War II munition site, old World War II ammunition site called the TNT area.
Oh.
See, now the plot thickens. More and more reported sightings rolled in over the course of the next year. The first mention of him in a newspaper came in the Point Pleasant Register on November 16th, 1966. Yeah, guys. So, yeah, look at this thing right here. I don't know if you can see it, but
it's
like,
newspaper.
Yeah. 4 more say they saw the red-eyed whatever. I love that. I love that clipping.
Why is that the caption?
I don't know. I just love that. The whatever.
That guy got paid to make that article.
Oh, totally, he did.
Wow.
But I just thought like that was really cool. But then yeah, so like this is like again, was a thing. Just like remember the Snallygaster episode where there were like newspaper clippings and things like that. And I'm just telling you, it's pretty cool. More and more reported sightings rolled in over the course of the next year. The first mention of him in a newspaper came in the Point Pleasant Register, November 16th, 1966, with the headline, "Couple sees man-sized creature or something." Later on, an anonymous, I know, right, or something,
or
dot. Titles back then just weren't as catchy.
No.
Later, an anonymous Ohio newspaper copied editor doubled him. An anonymous Ohio newspaper editor dubbed this creature Mothman, likely to sound similar to Batman. Many locals believed the Mothman lived in the vacant nuclear power plant on the outskirts of town. Oh my gosh. In an area once home to top secret government facilities where nuclear weapons were being tested because of World War II.
Okay.
Was the Mothman some product of a government tampering? A winged manifestation? A winged
manifestation.
I can do this. A winged manifestation?
Yeah.
A winged manifestation born from weapons testing and the destruction that fell on Japan that fateful day. Imagination runs wild as to what the creature and the legend really is. There are other things, like the idea that maybe Mothman is a harbinger of doom, just like the blackbird of Chernobyl or the bell buzzard. For it is also noticed that every time there's a natural disaster, this creature is always seen. So example is like there was a bridge collapse where 13 people fell in the water. And it was the 13th bolt.
In their cars or something?
Okay. And there was a prophecy. They made a movie and a book about it, which is really cool. It's called the Mothman Prophecies, where the idea was that there would be, I think it was 12 deaths and you'd resurrect 13 and it would be on the 13th day. And people always saw this weird creature flying about. Then all of a sudden, a bridge collapsed and it was the biggest natural disaster in American history up to that point. And the 13th bolt on the bridge gave out. And 13 people died on the 13th day.
Oh, that's not cool. Nope.
Yep.
Nope. That's some bad, nasty juju.
Ever since that happened, no one ever saw Mothman. So there were a lot of incidents of people seeing it up until that point. So it's really cool. And I was thinking about doing maybe a secondary special just on the bridge collapse, because in of that is an interesting tale. Because I mean, again, they made a book and a movie about it, but it really culminated in this bridge collapse. It really solidified Mothman as like, I think like this, almost like an icon.
Right. It's like a warning.
Yes, like a warning. And so let's get into the possible explanation to what he is before we kind of get into our story today. There are a number of possible explanations for the original Point Pleasant sightings. Those early reports frequently called Mothman a bird-like creature with a focus on its red, beady, glowing eyes. Some local scientists believe it to be nothing but a large heron. Dr. Robert L. Smith of West Virginia University had a more specific theory. He believed locals had been seeing a large Sandhill Crane, a large bird with a 10-foot wingspan and red eyes, making red markings around its eyes. The bird isn't native to West Virginia, but sometimes occasionally make their way into the state. Now, I don't have this too, but if you listen to like people's explanation of this creature, it's between 6 and 7 feet tall, muscular, and it has this shape almost like when a hawk perches on something.
I was thinking like a bat.
A bat or a hawk, but you know how it's like they're more narrow at the feet, and then it like broadens up to the head.
Yes.
So think of that shape, but stout and thick. And so what I do want to do when you're talking there is I'm going to get a picture of this. And this is where I don't necessarily agree with them at all about this.
Are you pulling up a picture of that? Is it herring or the bird that they're assuming that they're seeing, or a picture of like what Mothman actually looks like, according to accounts?
So
So all of those.
I'm gonna
Yes,
whip.
yes,
Yes,
yes.
I'm
Okay.
whipping up all of them
Let's see
before we
all of
kind of
them.
get into today's story. So this is kind of one picture of it, and this is like a model done. Just stream. Boom.
Okay.
So that is what people consider Mothman to look like.
Those are very big eyes.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's like it's got big eyes. It's very thick.
Look at his teeth.
I know, isn't that?
There's no beak though. I cannot believe they called this Mothman when it literally looks like a bat.
Yeah,
I'm
that to
telling you,
me,
it looks straight up like a Batman.
it does. Now, and we can get some other pictures of it too, and I'll get that up as well. But then this is the Sandhill Crane.
Okay, that's the Sandhill Crane with the red. I see.
There is no way in hell.
It's like the opposite shape and everything.
Like I don't understand like how people are like,
neck.
oh yeah, this is clearly I don't see how people say that is Mothman.
Mm-hmm.
And then if we go to this, like it's like easy to pop this up. Pop, boom.
Oh.
And then you can get tons of different images of what the Mothman looks like. You know, stereotypically, it's a shadowy figure. You can see the thickness of it too.
Mm-hmm.
Big wings, almost like angel wings.
Yeah, that's a good description.
Yeah, very, very thick.
I think more like an owl, to be honest.
Yeah,
an actual like crane with a super duper long neck.
Yeah, but as you can tell, it's a very thick creature.
Yeah.
In its build. But then if you go to that and then you compare it to like, you know, like the Sandhill Crane, like I don't see what people are. I don't know what the professor is saying about that. How the hell do you mistaken that?
They were just looking for a bird with large bird with red around its eyes. That's it.
Yeah, because
when they saw that, they're like, "Yep, this is going to be our explanation for everything."
Because like when we did the Snallygaster episode, an eagle or like a couple of those other eagles, the name escapes me right now, that actually eat monkeys and children in South America.
Oh yeah, like the massive birds,
like those that are like those 7-foot tall eagles that literally like I know. So I go guys watch that Snallygaster episode to kind of like get the images for it. But there are like I think they call it like golden eagles or monkey eagles, and they literally are the size. They're bigger than a small child. They're massive.
Oh yeah, they could like lift people off
the ground. And you can see images of people hunting with these things. Also, another variation of this one that will attack deer and knock deer down. So the fact is, if for some reason a hawk or an eagle like that got into Appalachia and you saw a bird like that, that's a Snallygaster, because something like that would attack a sheep.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And they do in the wild,
like people, small children, things like that.
And so that makes like 100% sense. Like an eagle that's not native to here that does hunt goats and sheep attacks a goat, you'd be scared out of your mind.
Okay.
So yeah, boom, Snallygaster. This, I don't know, because like look at the legs, look at the face. Like how the hell is that glowing red eyes?
They were just looking for options, and that's the one that they went with. They were like, oh, red around the face, oh, big bird. This is the winner right here. Yeah,
I just don't buy that. I think that's what also makes this legend so interesting to me, is the fact that there is no good explanation for what it is. That was the best one, was the Sandhill Crane. Yeah. Maybe it's a massive owl or something like that, or maybe it is something supernatural. It is the interesting part of this whole story, is the harbinger of death. This gets us in to today's tale, which I'm pretty excited about.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Time now for the tale of Mothman. My name is Bobby Joe, and this is the time that I went out with a friend in search of Mothman, and we bit off a little bit more than we could chew. We heard about all the rumors in the TNT area about sightings, but we didn't believe it. My friend Alan Coates had a motorcycle, and so we were just riding along, and Al said, "Do you want to go up to the TNT area and have a look around?" Reluctantly, yeah, I agree. We already had news stories about the Mothman, which locals referred to simply as the bird. It was a chilly evening, so we both were wearing heavy coats.
I don't know what's happening right now.
We drove along the Camp Colony Road, and the road was adjacent to the old armory, which later became the fairgrounds. As we were riding through the area, Al yelled out with sharply, "Hey, look at that!" We stopped the motorcycle and looked up on top of the roof of the old 3-story abandoned power plant building. We could barely make it out, but there it was, hunched over at the top, 2 glowing red eyes staring down at us. from on top of the building.
They saw him right away.
Yeah, right. He was just sitting right there on the building that night. I told Al, somebody probably has a couple of old reflectors nailed to a board,
Right.
shining it out there. So that way, every time you turn the corner, the light hits it, it's going to have these beady red eyes.
So I was thinking, or just like set up like 2 lights.
Yes,
Up on the
like
right
2
side.
lights, something like that. So you can kind of like, oh, okay, play a prank on us. Because they don't care. They think this is not real.
People want to see it.
Yeah, exactly. So it had a couple of old reflectors nailed to a piece of wood just to scare people who pass by. Alan responded, I bet you're right. Let's go see what is up there. As we got to the entrance of the dilapidated building, we looked up to see that those red eyes had moved.
Uh-oh.
It was hunched over, staring down at us now. Goosebumps started to form. You couldn't really make out the shape of the creature, but the eyes were extremely prominent. What is crazy with those eyes looking at us is like, how could it have done that?
Because it was alive.
Bob was like, well, I bet what it is there's some dude up there and he moved it to scare us. He probably saw us coming, and then all you had to do is angle it down to stare at us,
Just
to
standing
freak us
there
out there.
doing nothing.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Got nothing better to do.
Al convinced me that we should go in the building and see who's doing this. He's causing all this ruckus. We entered the building and headed up to the 3rd floor to use the ladder to get up to the roof. The building, as we said, was dilapidated with holes and broke holes everywhere in the building, with parts of the floor like gone.
You probably shouldn't be climbing
It's
in the building.
pretty.
Then.
It's dangerous.
Sounds very unstable.
You could see down from the 3rd floor all the way to the main floor.
Uh-oh.
As we got to the 3rd floor, the ladder used to connect the 3rd floor to the roof had been removed, possibly when they demolished the building. I thought to myself, well, then how the hell could someone get up there then? That doesn't make any sense. On the other side of the 3rd floor, there was a concrete platform that attached to another concrete platform with a metal grated catwalk that connected the 2 concrete platforms together. On the other side of the catwalk was a bunch of old equipment, electrical equipment, big factory machinery, things like that hadn't been removed yet. We looked to try to go over there to investigate, but the catwalk was broken in half, and you would fall if you tried to jump over it because you didn't know if the concrete was safe or not. The ladder used to connect the 3rd floor to the roof had been removed, possibly from the demolition, Al said. I thought to myself, how the hell could someone get up there then? Al shrugged. You could probably use a rope, something like that, to climb up there. On the other side of the 3rd floor was all that equipment. And I wondered to Al, it's like, why did they not move this equipment yet? Yeah, I bet somebody's living up here. That's probably what it was. I get my place. We wanted to get over to the other side, but the catwalk again was broken, leaving that massive gap. You want to try to jump it? Al said to me. Heck no. I don't have that kind of athleticism no more. Just at that moment, Al nudged me in the ribs. Bob, look over there. On the other end of the catwalk, in the shadows, was a weird figure. I could hardly make it out. Its movements were unnatural, unsettling. It was slow, bobbing and moving, so methodically. It slowly made its way towards us, ducking behind different pieces of abandoned equipment. And as I mentioned earlier, the floor of the abandoned building was covered in rubble, and there was glass everywhere. And yet, whenever whatever it was moved, it never made a sound. What made this even harder is it was a full moon that night, and the moon shone through the cracks in the roof, creating almost like a spotlight effect wherever the moonlight hit. However, it darkened the areas it didn't, making it even harder to see. The radiating moonlight through the building cracks made it impossible for us to get a good glimpse of whatever it was. But it was moving closer to the edge, shuffling closer and closer to us. As it got closer, a little bit of the moonlight radiated towards it, and we could get a better outline of the creature. It was large, with broad shoulders, narrowing down to the legs, no neck, and a stubby head. I couldn't really see any eyes, though. I didn't even know what I was seeing. I'm guessing it was around 6'5" to 7 feet tall. It had a muscular build, almost like an owl-like head perched, like it was about to stare down at its victims. I was thinking to myself, this is probably some dude trying to pull a prank on us. It has to be. Al was right. It was someone just stacking a light on a piece of wood. He's trying to freak us out. It was cold out. He's probably just wearing a big trench coat, trying to freak us out and pretend that he's some creature. So I stuck my hand in my coat pocket and I told Al, hey, listen, I think I'm going to get this guy to come confess. So I yelled out in a loud voice, hey, Al, that is Mothman. I'm going to shoot it. Hey, buddy. Hey, if you're Mothman, I got a gun and I'm going to use it. It didn't make a sound. It didn't flinch. It didn't move. So this guy was like saying, like, I think what he's doing is like, oh.
He's trying to scare the guy into confessing so that he didn't shoot him.
Yeah, it'd be like Sasquatch. Like, oh, I'm going to shoot Sasquatch. Oh, no, please don't, please don't, please don't.
Right.
But the creature didn't do anything. It just stayed there and studied them. Its head bobbed back and forth slowly, turning from one side to the other.
Like a bird.
Its movements, very, very like methodical. Whatever it was, it started walking towards us again, towards the edge of the broken catwalk. Still not knowing what I was looking at. I yelled out, hey, buddy, don't watch out for the edge there. That catwalk's broken. It's like a 3-story drop. The creature just slowly walked to the edge and hopped off. We gasped in horror before we heard the flapping of wings that shot up into the rafters of the building. Ooh, I'm sorry, I got goosebumps there. Ooh. The creature dropped off the edge of the darkness, and all we heard was the flapping of wings as it swooped off into the rafters of the building. But the perch that it landed on, the broken roof, let the moonlight shone, and we could see the creature in its full. Its body was thick, with feathers covering it. The owl-like head was prominent, and it had these massive, beating, glowing red eyes. And it just stared at us with its head turning back and forth. We were frozen. We didn't know what to do. Then Alan grabbed me by the collar of my shirt and said, let's get the hell out of here. We ran out of that building and got onto the motorcycle and drove as fast as we can. To this day, I've never been back there, not knowing what I saw. Was this creature actually real, or did I make it all up? I guess I'll never know. And that was the tale of Mothman.
They're so lucky Mothman wasn't hungry, because he could have easily eaten them. Also, why is it called Mothman? It just bothers me so much. Mothman, but they all say it looks like a bird. Oh, it looks like a giant bird. It looks like a giant bat. It looks like a giant flying thing with feather covered wings. Okay, that's a bird. Why are you calling it a bug?
Yeah, like that.
This is like the least intimidating name is to call it a bug man. Oh, hey, it's Ant-Man.
I think it's because Marvel has copyrights for all those characters, probably. But like the thing I liked about this story too is it kind of went with that, like I guess that narrative of like its movements were definitely like a bird of prey. Like remember when I tried to touch that owl?
Yes.
Like they just are very stoic and very like all their movements are very calm.
Yeah, they're not necessarily reactive versus they more so like look at you first and kind of analyze what's going on and then they react to it versus birds that will just like hear sound and just flutter away and just like not even look.
Like the other day when I was working at my parents' house, like there was a red-tailed hawk on the fence, just sitting there, just chilling, and it was so cool just watching him. And the same thing, he's just here, and they just turn their head, but they're like the dogs ran out, of course, but he was like very like calm and collective. And then when I stood up or when I opened the door to go outside, it turned and stared at me, did that head thing, and it was like making a decision, but then it just flapped and went to a tree and then stood up higher.
And then like reanalyzed,
are
you a threat or not? Yeah.
And so it's like, that was so creepy thinking about this. When I read this story, it's like, that's kind of what it did. It's like, it's there. And then it got up to a higher perk and now it's staring at him. So it's like, that's this creepy. Because especially guys, I've seen an owl very close up. I know 2 owl stories.
Yep.
Dude, those things are intimidating. I don't know why they're more intimidating than like a bald eagle, but I think it's just their body shape and the fact, and this is the other thing about the Mothman that makes sense. Like I think it is like an owl creature. You can't hear an owl coming for some reason. The way its feathers are
very silent.
Yes,
incredibly silent. But that's because of what they hunt. Think about that.
Well, yeah,
but they hunt like mice and things like that, so they have to be incredibly quiet.
But yeah, I agree with you. But could you imagine, let's say we'll call this Owlman.
Okay.
Could you imagine a 6-foot owl? That would be fucking terrifying.
Yes.
To be in the woods and have something like that.
Small ones are scary
Yeah.
when you get up close to them, just because like their eyes just like stare into your
Yes,
soul.
yes, they do. Then especially if you had an owl that big with red eyes.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, just something that big in the area you feel, I think especially like if you're in the woods or at night, you feel like there's something around you, like a squirrel or something. But imagine a humanoid bat thing like that. Oh my God. But then there's also the harbinger of evil part of it. But we'll get into that probably in another episode at some point. Really, the Mothman prophecy point of it,
I would
the
like to
harbinger of
hear the
death.
story about the bridge.
And I think we'll save that though, but it'll be for another story. But
Sounds
guys, this was Mothman.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
8 months.
That was a really, really good episode. Thank you for sharing, Tom.
Yeah, you're very welcome, guys. And then stay tuned next week for more spirits and ghost stories. I'm your host, Thomas Aarons.
And Carly Bird.
We'll see you guys
Bye.
next time. Bye.